America under distress, America under siege. Today's topic is going to be about who runs the world and countries, the Rothschild family dynasty. Okay? The Rothschilds, the ones who changed the course of world history by how money was handled, and it went all across the world. I'd like to say again, I appreciate all your support. We're growing, we're doing very well on all the channels mentioned before, but let's get right down to it for one reason. This is going to be longer than the normal show, like the last one, about 30-35 minutes, and there's a lot of information about the Rothschilds. There's a lot of information that's factual, there's some that's not factual, but this one is about how they created their business setup, where did they come from, the genealogy, how they created their wealth, how they collected treasures around the world, which actually became museums. After World War II, many of the things that they collected was taken back because they weren't supposed to be in private hands. So this show is about the Rothschilds. Here we go. This show is not mainly about conspiracy theories. That comes down the road about other topics about secret society and things like that. This one is about actual things about the Rothschilds, how their business was set up, how the wealth was created, how their inheritance was set up, which is very interesting to say the least. These people lived like kings and queens. And they even became nobility, which actually they went in the club. That's up the country. This is why Mary this one. And take this off. So when it comes down to it, I'm going to show you a video about the genealogy from Mr. B. And I'll put links on in the video, and at the end I'll put the links on America Under Distress, America Overseas, the page that's on Facebook. The reason why I'm doing this, most of the ones I want to show you are copyrighted. I can't embed it into a YouTube video because I'll get a copyright claim. I'll just send it through my webpage, America Under Distress, America Overseas, the channel for free thinkers, just like this channel is here for free thinkers. We have to think for ourselves. We can't let other people think for us. The government's not going to do it for everybody. They only do it for certain people. You see that in Washington right now. This is so important. Everything that I move forward with is banking, money. Money rules everything. It should be a relation. To me, it's my relationship to the Lord and your spirit, my spiritual experience. Whatever you believe, that's your choice. And that's your right here. Okay? And you can keep that personal relationship. It's in the First Amendment to the Constitution. Keep that. Support it. Stand up for whatever you believe. Even if it's Christianity, even if it's Judaism, even if it's whatever. Nature, whatever it is, you support that. But everything comes down to money, cash, moolah. That's just the way it is. And that's why I'm showing you this. And that's why it's so important to this channel and how we are under distress and under siege. So now, I'm going to show you a video from Mr. Beat, like I said. And I'll get to that video right afterwards. And I'll get into some very interesting commentary and a lot of information. But there's a lot more after that on other shows. Here we go. I'll show you Mr. Beat's video. Actually, the genealogy tree and a tiny bit of conspiracy.
And they often do it to hide stuff that they did that looks really, really bad. They classify documents in the name of national security, and then later we find out about stuff like Operation Paperclip and the Tuskegee experiment. And don't even get me started about billionaires. Billionaires are very powerful, and they often influence governments to do what they want to do, and they can be just as corrupt. That all said, let's have a serious look at the Rothschild family. Also known as the Rothschilds Dynasty, they are an extremely wealthy family that all descend from a dude named Meyer Rothschild, known as the, quote, founding father of international finance. Meyer and his 5 sons all built up a fortune by loaning money to princes who were going to war with each other. Yep, they were bankers, money lenders. Everybody loves money lenders, am I right? And war was good for business. Through both the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, they made a huge fortune. After the fall of Napoleon and the death of Meyer, his sons set up shop all over Europe. London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples, to be specific. In all places, they loaned money to the aristocracy and the government. Meanwhile, they had joined the aristocracy themselves, eventually becoming some of the most powerful people in the world. Pretty impressive since they were Jewish. Whoa, are you anti-Semitic?
Whoa, are you?
No. My point was that it's impressive that they were able to build up so much power and wealth despite all of the anti-Semitism that was so common at the time. For centuries, Jews had faced systematic discrimination and persecution, which made it really hard for them to build up wealth. So the Rothschilds overcame this. Speaking of anti-Semitism, I do have a video about that. Before you check it out, though, I want to warn you that the comment section might make you lose your faith in humanity. As I said in that video,
I checked it
since
out.
Christians weren't allowed to lend money for profit, but Jews could, Jews often turned to money lending to build up wealth.
I'll give you some history about that as well.
And were often forced to live in Jewish
That's
ghettos.
where the Rothschilds came from.
Rothschild actually lived in one of those Jewish ghettos in Frankfurt, which at the time was part of the Holy Roman Empire. He had a rough childhood. His parents had both died by the time he was 12, so it was quite amazing Meyer was able to rise to power the way he did. Speaking of impressive, Matt of Useful Charts has released
Support Useful Charts. Every video I have has support this channel.
Rothschilds Dynasty. If you're not familiar with Useful Charts, it's basically Matt's company that releases these beautiful historical diagrams. He sells them as posters on his website and also has a YouTube channel highlighting his diagrams. This video is a collaboration of his Rothschild family.
And I'm joining
Be
in.
sure to check out his video going over it when you're done watching this
Please
one.
do.
Anyway, before Meyer Rothschild died in 1812, he gave very clear instructions to his sons for how to handle the finances of the family.
Here you go.
He wanted their wealth kept within the family and encouraged marriages between cousins. Ew. And he went as far as to say never give a direct inheritance.
That's one of the
to
castles.
daughters. But yeah, this explains why so much of the wealth stayed with the Rothschilds throughout the 1800s. However, by the end of the 1800s, there were other plutocrats, man. The Rothschilds were no longer the top dogs in the world in terms of wealth. Not only that, but family rivalries, politics, and wars greatly decreased.
Does this sound familiar today?
The Naples branch closed in 1863, and no male heirs led to the Frankfurt branch closing in 1901.
Actually, the first
Vienna
one.
branch closed after the Nazis invaded Austria in 1938.
Assume their
Most of
assets?
The Rothschilds in Vienna fled, selling their bank for a fraction of what it was actually worth. During World War II, the Nazis seized millions of dollars
Collected
worth of
treasures.
precious
I'll talk about
items
that
and
later.
art from the Rothschilds in France. Most
Became
of it was
museums.
never
I'm
returned.
going to put
Fast
links on
forward
my
to today, and all that
channel
remains is the
to
Rothschild
show you those.
Company, a multinational investment bank and financial services company, and the Edmund de Rothschild Group, another financial services company. Don't get me wrong, most of the Rothschilds around today still have lots of wealth, much of it due to assets passed down over the centuries. However, today the Rothschilds have little power and wealth compared to what they had at the
That's what some
In
people
fact,
think.
just
I'll
one
show you
Rothschild
differently
made the
in other
Forbes
videos
list
that'll
of
come down.
billionaires this year. Benjamin Rothschild, head of the aforementioned Edmund de Rothschild Group, is the 1,349th richest person in the world. That said, the family remains very secretive, which is one reason why so many conspiracy theories surround them even today. I mean, we don't know how much wealth the entire family actually has. One source says $2 trillion,
Whoa.
while another source says maybe less than $25 billion. Look, the Rothschilds don't appear to control the world. I mean, there are 2,207 billionaires that don't have any direct ties to the Rothschild family whatsoever. So how can only the Rothschilds control the world? I think all the billionaires control the world.
Just want to let you know, the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve. The Rothschilds family did start the Federal, they divided Europe first, took over Europe, the Napoleon.
But conspiracies persist that the Rothschilds control everything due to their ability to control banking and finance throughout the world.
But was Mr. Rothschild a moral man? Here's a man that had 5 sons, and he sent his 5 sons into 5 countries. And from these sons, they worked and maneuvered and manipulated until they gained control of the central banks of England, France, Austria, Italy, and Germany. But a Jew, Rothschild, loaned money to Adolf Hitler.
The House of Rothschild owned Israel. They funded the early settlers. They funded now. They funded.
How did these conspiracy theories get started? For starters, it didn't help that the Rothschilds were Jewish. Anti-Semitism was a serious issue when they rose to dominate finance in the early 1800s, but it only got worse later on, and Satan certainly didn't help. In 1846, a pamphlet called the, quote, Rothschild pamphlet went viral, and it was written by someone who went by the pseudonym Satan. Satan said that at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, Nathan Rothschild realized the French were going to lose, so he quickly returned to Britain
part
to
of my
make money
commentary.
on the stock exchange. The story wasn't true at all. In fact, Nathan Rothschild was nowhere near the Battle of Waterloo, but the story spread regardless.
I have
And
more
the
information
myth
than
was
just this.
born that the Rothschilds absolutely loved making money from wars. I mean, they loved making money, but they didn't start wars to make money. Later, the protocols of the Elders of Zion
Yes.
didn't help the Rothschilds' reputation after it revealed the secret plans of Jews to take over the world. Of course, those were also proved to be fake.
I checked
as
into
well,
that, and that
the
was
Rothschilds
fake.
further didn't help their reputation when they expressed both vocal supports and monetary supports for the creation of the State of Israel. And finally, the secretive nature of the Rothschilds also didn't help their reputation. People often create conspiracy theories when there are lots of secrets.
Yes.
It's fun to fill in the blanks on your own, after all. So do the Rothschilds control the world? Perhaps parts of it.
Yep.
But I'd say the Waltons control bigger parts of it.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But what do I know? I'm a card-carrying member of the Illuminati. Be sure to check out Matt's video over on his YouTube channel, simply called
Check that out as
Useful
well.
Charts. His useful chart is the Rothschild family tree, of course. Be sure.
See what I mean? There's a lot of information in that video. I cut some of it off because it got into too much conspiracy theory stuff. I showed you a little bit of that, but again, check out Useful Charts. Check out Mr. Beat's videos. For the most part, they're very, very good. I've done a lot of more research since watching Mr. Beat, and I found some more information coming from very reputable sources about how they made their money, and there's some issues that I call with the other ones, but basically I'll get into it like this. All the other videos that I will show you, like the treasures, the links about how I made this video, I'll put in the America Under Siege, America Under Distress, America Under Siege webpage. It's on Facebook, so just check it out. Don't join it unless you want to. If you think it's interesting enough for you, that's great. If you don't, that's cool. I just want to tell you how to get the other information so I don't get busted on copyright stuff. Okay, as you said, you saw in the video, the Meyer Amschel Rothschild had 5 kids. Actually 5 boys, 5 girls. He actually had 19. 9 of them died at childbirth. So this guy had 19 children. They didn't say that on that video. I found that on my own. So basically, after he set up this business, and he was actually what is called he was Jewish, he was allowed to make money off of lending money where Christians weren't. Okay? That is very soon come up about that topic as well. So you had the 5 sons, and this is where they were. The 5 sons, Nathan was in London, James or Jacob was in Paris, Solomon Meyer was in Vienna, Carl was in Naples, and Amschel Meyer is in Frankfurt. Okay, what is a usury? Usury is a procedure that goes back to Roman Empire and the Greeks and things like that. Basically, they had lent money out to people that they charged interest on. The Catholic Church, or the papal mandates, papal prohibition, which is in the 18th century, when this family started, it was prohibited for Christians to lend money and make money off of that money. In other words, handle money at all. That's how the Jews got their power. That's how this family got power. That comes down to, okay, I'll turn to the next, is right here. In the 18th century, a papal prohibition basically declared it was a sin, mind you, to make money or charge money off a loan. In those times, you basically dealt with coin. That's how the father of the 5 sons, 5 girls, and 9 died at childbirth, started making his money, trading in coins, okay? That's how their father did, and that's how the dynasty was built, by trading coins. And since they were Jewish, they were called upon to handle the monarchy's money. So basically the monarchies in those 5 separate areas, okay, that was spread out over Europe. That's where all the ships went out, getting goods and services. They traded in coin, and the governments needed money for that transference of goods and services, payment of money. They lent them the money for their ships and their expeditions, and they got a profit off that. And they did other things I'll tell you about later. That's how it came to being. Also, around the 13th century, it was Sir Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century said it was unchristian, to sin as well, to make money off of that loan. So that's where it came from. This mentality that it was ungodlike, it was unchristian-like, to make money off of lending people money because you already gave them the money back. It was like abusing the person that needed the money. Does that sound familiar? High interest rates, predator interest rates, payday loans, fast loans, credit cards that are up to 35%. Does that sound familiar? And government needing money, borrowing money. Does that sound like what's Washington doing? So this whole thing came from this system. And even the communist countries do the same thing. They set up their banks, they set up their interactions with Western capitalist systems the same way as the Rothschilds. That's why they're considered the founder of the modern banking system, the creator of the modern banking system. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how they made their money and how they made their wealth in their businesses, and then talk to you a little bit more what we saw in the video about how the family stayed rich. Okay, these are a list of maybe 20, but there's hundreds and hundreds of other ways they made money, and they were tied together during their heyday. I have to say the 18th and 19th century was mainly their heyday. After World War II, it started to go away, but mainly this is the 18th century and the 19th century. So they did trading goods and services on the foreign exchanges, mercantile banks, private banks, asset management, mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisitions is very important. When somebody lost the war, you saw the areas where they set up their banking system. One bank would fund it, but all the banks in his system, the Rothschilds, knew about it, and they were in on the deal. So they they hedged their bet one way or the other. When one lost, they had to get their money, and they assumed the assets of that country that lost. And they manipulated bond networks, trading networks for their benefit, to make money. That's why that one is so important. And it still works for banks and companies today. Insurance companies, sovereign debt, commodities, infrastructure was another massive factor for them during the 18th and 19th century. Such things as bridges, tunnels, railways, hotels, the media. They even bought into media companies to control the media. Does this sound familiar too? This is why they have so many conspiracy theories on them. They had so much control during that time frame, and some people just don't believe that they gave up that control totally. Okay, I have a tendency to believe that they didn't lose control. But again, if I can't prove it, I'm not going to say wholeheartedly that they did. So it's a conspiracy theory, okay? And even wine and some goods and services. So basically, all right, here's some more companies and some more topics of how they made their money. Okay, Alliance Assurance was set. Alliance Assurance, which is now Royal Sun Alliance, was created in 1824, not too far after the Napoleonic Wars. Canton de Nord was 1844. The French, that was a railway system industry. That was from France. That was from the French branch. The Rio Tinto, 1873. That was the mining company. Aeronauts, which is 1880. That was a French bank. That was gold, silver, and diamonds. Emirs, I may be pronouncing this incorrectly, but 1880 was a mining, production, industrial equipment. That was in 1880. And the De Beers. Everybody that has a diamond on their ring knows the De Beers company. They mine diamonds, okay? They got into that as well. And they also had these collections that they did before. But this goes back to how they created their wealth. They funded both sides of the equation that was mentioned in the video and briefly I just mentioned before. There was the Russian-Sino War, the Portuguese rebellion from the Brazil Revolution against the Portuguese. They set up banks and funds to help the Brazilians get away from Portugal. Okay? So next one, and this was also because of the branch style. The main branches are there in those 5 cities that I mentioned, but they also set up branches in big towns, in larger municipalities to fund local people and charge money there. Do we have a branch system now in the United States? Do we? You have Wells Fargo branches all over the place. You have Sun Bank all over Florida. You have regional banks. You have national banks that are used by the Rothschilds, the Carnegies, and the Mellons, and all those people. It's the same setup, okay? It's the same setup, okay? And our country has followed suit. But, okay, I have to say this. This is going to be a topic for a longer show, a whole 30 minutes on this topic alone. But the United States used the Rothschilds banking system for the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913 by Wilson. What happened was that people were getting sick and tired of the corruption and the collusion, actually used collusion, between the banks to manipulate stocks. They make money where the average person didn't. The people in 1910, 1915, they were having all kinds of problems with it. There's a movie that talks about collusion between, was that Wall Street? Another one, Money Never Sleeps. Money doesn't sleep. He just collects interest or loses money. So basically that system was hated by the people of how the banks were manipulated. But on this island in Georgia, a Jekyll Island, and I'll show you a picture of the guy who actually Jekyll Island is named after. This was a very ritzy place where the wealth and power mad people of this country met to write the laws to control the banking industry. That was supposed to be done by the government to control the banking industry. The collusion was, and this is all documented. You look it up. Jekyll Island meeting in Jekyll Island, Georgia. These bankers came together, wrote the laws to help them, and pushed it to the government, and the government just said, okay, no problem. The American people just got blanked. And I'm not going to say the words, but you can figure that one out. But it will pass. Nowadays, if you say that these banks own the Federal Reserve, they will say no. That's what you see on the news. That's what you see on the internet. That's what you see on the Google. But you really think they have left control. That's why they've created what is called LLCs, subsidiary companies with different names, different owners, different companies, but it all goes funneling back to the banks who actually want it created in the first place. So Jekyll Island, the bankers of the United States set up the Federal Reserve, went into law. Then they started making their money that way. Everything kind of fell apart a little bit after World War II, but it's still there. And it was created by bankers to help bankers, but it was put out there publicly as against bankers. You see that a lot too. So Now we come to the area of what is called, why did they keep so much money in the family? In the Mr. Beast video, it showed, and the Useful Charts video, that will be in the link on America Under Distress, America Under Siege, is about how they kept it in the bank, how they kept it in the family. Okay, here we go. The 5 sons and the 5 daughters, basically, that survived from the founder of the banking system or the dynasty, and also he lost 9 children. They inherited their money through a method that's I consider extremely sexist. When I'll tell you to, which is right now, only the males got the cash. Only the males were inherited. The reason why the father did that is because he said to the sons and he said to the wife, all these 19 kids, 9 died, was that if the daughters get the inheritance, they can marry somebody else and the money goes to that family. We don't keep it within the family. That's why he did it. So that's why they had the practice of, they married first, second, third cousins. They also, a brother married a niece to keep it within the family, have kids that way, have a son, then it goes to the son. So that's how they manipulated the money and how it stayed in the family. It's gross, as far as I'm concerned, it's incest, but that's how they did it. That's how they got their money. And they live like kings and queens. They got nobility. That's another thing that was briefly mentioned. In September 29, 1822, Austria, he was given what is called a baronet. Actually, in 1822, he was considered a baron in Austria. Queen Elizabeth, no, not Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria, a title of baronet in 1847, and then hereditary title later on that year of baron. So 2 houses of the Rothschilds became nobility. And that's why most of the assets that was seized after World War II became items you could see in the British Museum. Okay, because the Rothschild house family in London and the banking system is still profitable and it's still active. So they got hereditary title. And I'm also going to give you a couple examples. I'm going to go back just a little bit about information, inside information. It was mentioned about Napoleonic Wars, the French Revolution. Okay, the London house under Nathan basically single-handedly funded the English effort and their allies against Napoleon. They basically set up funds around in their branching system to pay the soldiers where they were, and their money and things like that, and the allies. And remember, they also funded the other side. The other house did that too. So they did the same thing on the other side. So they kept everything in the family. So they were making money here, they're making money here. All 5 branches were making money off of that one. Because of the branch system, they knew about that Napoleon was losing. They did not, I've dug this up for the last couple of weeks. I'm trying to find, that's why I mentioned this earlier. And I didn't want to put it out because I want to make sure we're putting out the correct information. But what the Rothschilds did, they knew that they were going to lose. They didn't, once it was announced, they basically bought up a lot of bonds around the country to stabilize and support the government of England and all these other countries so that the entire continent would not collapse. That's what they did with that information. They were quick, they had the assets, they had the money, they were foreclosing, they were taking over debt from the losing sides, taking it in, funding it on the winning side, and spread it across the continent in those 5 branches. That's how they stabilized the economy during the 18th century. So again, I've talked to you about main banks, the branches around Europe. That ties exactly what we're doing right now in the United States. We did the same thing, and there's some other clips, some snapshots I'll put in there. They did fund the Nazis. When the Nazis took over in Germany, the Frankfurt branch was assumed, their assets were assumed. They took them over. So all the assets from that Frankfurt branch in Germany went into the Nazi coffers. And the other 4 branches basically played both sides of the coin. And at that time, the United States was here. They were doing the same thing through the setup because they followed the Rothschilds dynasty. That's already documented proof. That's already documented. Okay? Check it out. So, they're nobility. They're rich. And I'll stop here. If you've learned something, if you like this video, like, subscribe, and share it if you want. But this channel is for free thinkers. The more you know about how your government runs. Most people don't tell you this stuff. They just assume that your government is doing the right thing. No. They're not. Throughout history, there's a certain thing that will be in another show, what is called the political machine. The worst political machine is, in history, as they call it, is Tammany Hall from New York City. Boss Tweed. The 3 main ones is New York, Baltimore, and Chicago. New York was Boss Tweed. Chicago was Mayor Daley, the Daley Machine. And in Baltimore was Nancy Pelosi's father. I'll have shows about that later. But you look it up. You see those 3 main political machines are there. And it's documented, it's proven. There's things of mafia involvement. That's proven. That's concrete. Okay? And we still follow that mentality today of the boss system and the machine system. You have the mayor, the president. He hires his own people. He hires his local people. Or she, I have to say that, she. And then you have the grassroots, the committees. The Republican committee, the Democrat committee. Those are the 2 main ones here. They're using the same system that they did. Number 1, the Rothschilds, the branches, they owned it. The other branches in the towns, they owned that as well. So that's how they gained their power, their prestige, their wealth, their nobility. It's just the way it is. And if you really want progressive views, you need to have openness. And the banking system does not like that. It doesn't want that. You need to keep your information private and secure. That's a given. But they don't want people to know that they're doing both sides of the equation. They don't want people to know, which is what Agenda 2031, 2050 is about. Now they're changing the rules about banking that they will support you only if you support the topics that they want you to support. If you want to start a business in oil, they may shut you down because it's against their mandates of climate change and the new Paris Agreement that President Biden went into. Remember that. Check that out as well. There's videos about that. There's proof on that now. It was a conspiracy theory before, but now it's reality. Check out the banks. Check out the Paris Treaty Accords that Obama went into, Trump went away, and Biden went back into. Okay, money will control your life in all 6 areas. So, as I'll say again, this was a short video. I'll show how the Rothschilds controlled, manipulated, and controlled the world. They changed the entire banking system, like I said before, Europe and across the world. So, and the last thing before I'll start my supporting the things that this channel supports is the links to the treasures from the British Museum will be on America Under Distress, America Under Siege. Okay. We do support several things. One of them is Wounded Warriors. The other one is Epic Times, which will be in the link. Also, this channel has set up 2 scholarships for North Canton Hoover High School, the Bill Moore Citizenship Scholarship for Hoover High School, and also the Citizenship Scholarship up at Old Gallie High School here in Melbourne or Old Gallie, Florida. That one's going to be named soon. I have to get a confirmation of the name because I won't put a name out unless they've been confirmed. And there's already been a couple donations for race. So I'm very happy for that. Not much, but again, the first year has been taken care of. I want to make sure it stays there for every year. Also, the 2 scholarships to wounded warriors, things like that. So, the next video in America Under Distress, America Under Siege, will be about Reconstruction after the Civil War. But I'll continue this series like I'll continue the other series about Medal of Honors. But the next show will be on Reconstruction. But I'll still keep sending out ones for Medal of Honors and the scholarship announcements, just to keep that in your mind and things like that. So, if you enjoyed it, like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the closing paragraph of this is, we are free thinkers. Think for yourself. Get the information. Don't use confirmation bias. Just try to find something out there that you originally agreed with. Use your head. Use your critical thinking skills. Understand both sides. We're not going to get past this stupid deadlock that we constantly are in, this manipulating political machine system that we have in the House of Representatives and somewhat in the Senate right now. You know the information, they can't fool you. If you know the information, you can tell them you're wrong. And hold them in Washington accountable. Hold them accountable for every aspect, every topic. Fair elections, transparent funding, infrastructure's bill that don't have things that are tied into it, that if you don't agree with it, we're not going to pass forward, we're not going to pass go and collect $200 unless you agree with me. That's somebody in the House is saying pretty much that. She didn't say those exact words. I'm not bending. That's not negotiations. That's not working with the other side. This is what the Rothschilds did. So, understand, know your facts, understand the other side. Thank you for watching the show. I really enjoyed it. Many more to come. Thank you for your support, and see you next time. Bye-bye.